Okay, welcome to the Get Signed and Succeed podcast. This is episode number 17. My name is Bruce Badgley. We have our regular panel of Andrew Cohen, Craig Cox, and joining us live from Sarasota, Florida, Ed Voles. Ed, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. Really excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, the one thing, I'll be honest with you, and going through our pre-show meeting, there's a lot of people, and Andrew and what have you, and Craig and I, very kind of emotional about this because we feel that this is so important in the whole scheme of things in guys really trying to get to the next level. So thanks for joining us tonight. And what an important topic tonight about obviously highlights and by position there. So welcome, Ed. And I tell you what, we've got some great, I think, some great tips. We've covered this topic before, guys, but I tell you what, this is going to be a little bit more in depth. So thanks for joining us, everybody there. And I tell you what, Craig, this is going to be a very, I think, important topic for all these guys, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like you said, we covered this in episode 7. Coach Cohen's brother, Dave Cohen of Wake Forest, joined us and gave us some really good tips of what Division I college coaches look for in recruiting. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And then, like you said, we're going to go in more detail by position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you going to ask us, Coach Badge, are you going to ask us, the basics, or am I jumping the gun here about, I want to recap the basics that are some of the musts that have to take place in a highlight and planning for it, or am I jumping on your
No, that's absolutely what we're going to talk about, the basics, and then we're going to go in, specifically with, each particular one of you guys has your own specialty related to, positional players throughout your, coaching careers. And we're going to really, dive in deep there. But I guess the key thing, and, we'll start at the 40,000 foot level here. The most important thing, I think, regardless of whether it's highlights or whatever, is making sure that you've got a plan, right? And the key thing related to that plan is having people that are very knowledgeable in the entire process talk to you, give you guidance, and in every aspect of it. And that's really, Craig, you and Andrew have this great, special package in, guiding families and guiding players into what they need to be doing to get to the next level to play college football. Right, Andrew?
I think it's huge. I mean, I discussed it a little bit last week, but the film evaluation is where it all starts with recruiting, an accurate and professional film evaluation. And that's what we're going to give you in terms of the positives, the somewhat negatives, and how you can improve those things. But film evaluation tells you what level you are right now and what you need to do if you want to play at an even higher level. So I think that is huge. The social media assessment, just understanding, are you doing everything you can to market yourself? We use GoMVB. It's a public relations firm. They do a fabulous job marketing our student athletes. But how many people are following you on Twitter? Because if they're not following you, they can't see your information. With GoMVB and Get Recruited Consulting, the two combined have over 125,000 followers. But as a young student athlete that's a 25 or 26, you want to be at the 500 plus mark of followers, and you want that to keep going up, and you want 40% or more of them to be college football coaches, so the right people are watching it. Then academic evaluation is both me kind of explaining the level of schools you're looking at, but very important that Coach Cox gets involved and talks about how do you get your grades higher? How do you take classes that that are most challenging and still getting better grades. Study habits, time management, and understanding where you are. So we have a lot of kids, we were just talking about this today, that tell us they're really, their parents and them tell us they're a really good student and they're 3.4, 3.5 range. And honestly, we get the transcript and the kid's a 3.0. And I think it's vital that as a parent and us working for you, let's get that transcript out in the open. Let's see where you are. Let's see what you need to do to accomplish your goals. Okay. And then, sorry, you took it off, but the consultation in general is reviewing the film and answering any football recruiting questions you have. And then also going over the process, all the rules, the regulations and everything. So I do think it's a steal for 99 where, the amount of time that we'll put into it in advance and then after is really, it's not about the money, but it's a huge step for a family to go in the right direction. Coach, do you have the Calendly sign up, or do you want me to put that on the chat so they can sign up for an appointment, Bruce?
You have to put that on the chat.
Yeah, probably
let
put
me-
that on the chat. I forgot. Normally I put you guys' calendar out there. I did not, do that, but obviously your contact information. We talk about the fact of all they got to do is really pick up the phone to call either you or Craig, as well as, sending an email. There's obviously your Twitter. You can be, direct messaged via Twitter as well. But, the key thing is that, you're both approachable. And I think the important thing is that just with anything, and we were talking about this in our pre-show meeting. I mean, the student athlete and the family has to have a plan, okay, in how they approach this whole process, whether it's social media, highlight, contacting coaches, and what have you. And the important thing is having a plan, and quite honestly, having that third party who's a kind of an unbiased observer who really sees all of this, who has all the contacts, and will really give you a fair idea of what needs to happen. Right, Ed? I mean, the important thing is that you get a lot of opinions, and this isn't true of just college recruiting, but this is true of really just about everything. You want multiple opinions, and then you can kind of pick and choose which you think is the best path, right?
Yeah, I think that, the video resume, and we often talk about, your highlight film should be a resume of your abilities. And one of the challenges we always face is getting people off of the traditional understanding of what a highlight is, from a player, parent, friend standpoint, and then what is a highlight in relation to a college football coach, and really getting them to understand that the same things that a family or a player would value as a highlight isn't necessarily the same things that a college coach would value. And I think, we've got a wonderful process with Get Recruited where, Andrew or Coach Cohen will send some of the former college coaches like myself a video and ask us to evaluate it with the eyes of a college coach. So regardless of what the family or the child or, has to say about the kid's ability, they're only as good as the video says they are. Now, they can dig in more as they go through and uncover more value. But the reality is, the highlight video or the, skill set resume, as we like to call it, really is the gateway for you to get to the next step.
You know what? I think that as a collective group, changing the terminology from highlight film to skill set, what would you call it? Skill set resume?
Yeah. Yep.
Skill set resume, I think is absolutely right, because far too often it's ones where that they think, and it's actually that that skill set and how you're really going to portray that. So let's just bring up the fact that, we have some basic items here that we talked about, but suggestions for all highlight films: identify yourself before each play, don't pause the film after the play started, have your best plays at the beginning, keep your highlight short and sweet, and then have plays that will impress college coaches, not your family and friends. And that's just the basics. But talk a little bit about that, Andrew, and how
So
important
I'm
all those
gonna get
items
into
are.
that, but I think we jumped the gun a little bit. So Coach Voles and I developed our relationship, our rapport. We're very close, and we started that because we coached together at FCS Stony Brook University in Long Island. They were a new FCS program. We had a great experience together. He's coached numerous positions at the collegiate level, whether it was receivers or quarterbacks, and then as a high school coach, he's pretty much coached everything. He's been a extremely successful coach in Florida, and now he's back at it for the past 2 years coaching in Florida again. But we have a really good relationship, and he's my original partner. I started the business about 10 years ago. I was doing it on my own for about 6 months or so, and we always had a great rapport. So I said, hey, would you think about doing some stuff with us? So he's the guy that I know I always can trust. I know if, as much as he's loyal, he's still also going to tell me, Andrew, that's stupid. Don't do that. And I need that. So he's very valuable, very, very trustworthy, and very much appreciated by me, and what he's done for my family as well. So I wanted to get that in the open, that he's not throwing out BS here. So if I get a quarterback, to be very honest with you, I always share it with him and Coach Brady, and usually those are the only two, but I don't consider myself a pro. I can make a decision of who's good, what level, but the fundamentals they're really good at. Plus, if I get a family that's swearing at kids a certain level and I'm not on that same page at all, I like to throw it at him and just say, I don't say very much. I don't want to, be impartial by giving them already too much information. I just say, what do you think of this kid? So it's fresh. When we work with student athletes, we want to give them a fair evaluation and make sure we put an accurate game plan together. So, we can go on with just this, but it's already 15 minutes in. So you had something can you go back to the screen?
Yeah, I sure can. I sure can. These are the kind of the basics here that, with everything.
These are things that Coach Voles and I are always talking about. I also send it to him, and there'll be times where not only will he say, hey, this is a problem, but he'll say, hey, I just hate it. And I do. It's frustrating to watch a film where they're pausing it in the middle of the play, because then the problem is you don't see where he started the play from. And then from there, you can't really judge the real speed. So highlight yourself and pause it before the play starts, if at all possible. Okay. So make sure that you're marking yourself very clearly. Today, I'm finding with huddle, sometimes these circles are enormous and they're circling the whole offensive line. And that's not making it easier. It's making it tougher. Have the very best plays in the beginning is unbelievably important. If they're not excited by the fourth or fifth play, it probably goes off. And so that means your best plays, showing a range of plays. And we're going to go over this in a minute, but, a range meaning, at one position, you might need speed and strength and agility, so forth. Don't have the same type of plays over and over again. Keep your highlight film short and sweet. I think that's fairly accurate. Probably no more than 3 minutes, really. I mean, it could be 2 minutes if done, where it's just play after play and there's not a lot of space in between the plays. If you make a highlight of 10 to 15 plays and they're all very strong plays, the coach is going to leave very excited and having a good taste in his mouth. If you make that film 25 plays and now you're just watering it down, when he's watching that film, he's going to be like, yeah, okay. And it just doesn't leave with as much, you don't leave as excited as a coach. You know what I mean? You leave saying, yeah, he's okay. So we find when we're able to change highlights and shorten them and change the order of plays, a lot of times that makes them a lot more marketable. And what a family might think is a good play isn't always. I always give the example of defensive end gets a sack, but no one blocked him, or receiver got a 60-yard touchdown, but there wasn't anyone even close to him. You know, those are typical examples. So, and I'm sorry, I've probably gone too long-winded, but I thought that stuff to start off was extremely important.
You know, Bruce, just to sort of piggyback, if you don't mind, on top of what Andrew had said, you know, there's a perception, I think, where college coach's job is always to go out and find the best players available. But with the volume of information they get, a lot of times they're just trying to cross names off the list. And the quicker they can get to a no is faster they can get to yeses. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that process. So if you don't give them a clear reason to say yes quickly, they're going to move on, not because they don't care, but because of the pure volume of films they're expected to evaluate. And at the end of the day, you know, the head coach who oversees that particular position coach is expecting them to find the best of the best in their area. And with so much volume, you know, Huddle has become such a great tool for players and high school coaches. It's made things a lot easier. It's made the college coaches completely over inundated with information and has made their job, you know, there was a time where a guy like Andrew Cohen would pluck really great players out of various parts of the country because he was going to outwork every person that he was going to compete against. And part of that was because he was so great at relationships with high school coaches, so he was getting the information. Huddle now has made, in Twitter and social media, has made information so accessible that, you know, the poor working, you know, coach who's not putting the time in is getting just as much information from a video standpoint as a hardworking guy. So it's important to understand what their objective is. Their objective, you know, is, yeah, they'd like to find great players, but, you know, they've got a lot of people making recommendations, and as quickly as they can cross you off their list, the less their list is. And I think that's important that people understand, because that's really a dynamic that has changed over the last 5 to 10 years.
And that's why, quite honestly, you really need that third party to do an evaluation of what you're doing, to make sure that you're doing it A, correctly, and B, and being able to supplement all of the, you know, the stuff out there on social media with the you know, the personal approach that you know, Andrew and Craig Cox can do, you know, in this whole program that they've got, and only for $99. This is, you know, obviously with the film evaluation, the social media assessment, the academic evaluation, which is what obviously one of one, you know, life skills is all about there with Craig. And, you know, the phone consultation, that you have an opportunity to really talk to somebody. You know, it's really the only program, you know, incorporating in, you know, Go MVP, that it's the best program out there. That's all I can say. In getting a family and getting an athlete on the right track. And you know, you talked about that, Ed, about the fact that, you know, there's making sure that the coach doesn't just say no. You know, that's what Andrew and Craig are going to do for these athletes and families, right, Craig?
I mean, absolutely. That's the whole plan, is help them create a game plan for the recruiting. And that's the biggest thing that Coach Cohen does, is he's going to be upfront and honest with you and help you really get towards the colleges that you're going to have an opportunity not just to get into, but to have an opportunity to play. And once you narrow your focus down, it's going to help you a whole lot in your recruiting process.
Well, speaking Go ahead, Andrew.
I love it that you guys are being very complimentary. I appreciate it. I'd like to make a big push. Let's get this in gear, and the biggest focus is just some basic tips by position.
Yeah,
Right
absolutely.
into it. So, Badge, why don't you address each of us? I like it when he just asks us questions, and then that way we can speak right off the cuff and give accurate and sincere feedback.
Yeah, and I guess Ed, we're going to rely on you with the quarterback and offensive line. When it comes to films, talk a little bit about quarterbacks and what those guys really need to be concentrating on to make that impact with the guys that are looking at their film. You lost your thing there.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. So I think when we're evaluating quarterbacks, the first thing we're trying to do is identify what level they have the greatest chance to be successful. And we're always talking about the wow play. What do we see on film that literally makes you say, wow? And a lot of the videos and highlights that we look at are pretty much the same plays over and over again, where a quarterback drops back and throws a long fade or go route and the guy catches it and it's a touchdown. And that's wonderful, but that only checks one single box for us, and that's the box, how far can they throw? Then you start getting into thinking about, can they make college level throws? And I think that's really where players start to separate themselves. Do they have on their skill set resume a demonstration of the various college throws that they're going to be expected to make? And if they don't, then really all that does is that leaves the college coach who's in charge of evaluating the position with question marks. So I think what we do is we go through and we look at not only quarterback, but all positions, but how does our client accurately address the questions that the position coach is going to have? So for a quarterback standpoint, obviously we're looking for, how far can you throw the football, right? And those are really easy ones because almost everybody puts that on film. Then we're looking for ball velocity. How much, is it visible on film how hot and dynamic that ball comes out of your hands? Because if it doesn't show up on film, it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean it truly doesn't exist, but in our world, if it's not on film, it doesn't exist. And we've had numerous clients where they were telling us certain skills they had, but were not being demonstrated. And that's the hard thing with the high school quarterback, is that sometimes they do have the skills that a college coach is looking for, but because of the limitations of the offense, the other skill players, the scheme, do they have the ability to demonstrate those skills? So for me, when I'm watching quarterback video film, I want to see, what's their deep ball potential. Then I want to see how much does that ball jump out of their hands. And I'm talking, do they let it rip? And that's a phrase that we use all the time, or are they just kind of guiding the ball into a completion? I want to see, varieties of throws. And that means, can you throw a dig, a post, a slant, a field comeback? There are very specific throws that, as former college coaches, you got to know whether the prospect you're evaluating can even execute or not. And very often, high school players are not being asked to do that. Once we can, kind of get a sense of their throwing abilities, then we talk about their ability as an athlete. Are they a run threat? Are they a are they a functional runner or a dynamic runner? And that's something we talk about in terms of their ability to run, because the game has changed. And, based on height, weight metrics, the faster and more athletic you are, the more value you're going to present, as opposed to, somebody who maybe has the stature and the, you know, ball velocity that you're looking for, but are not very athletic or can't change direction or can't make plays with their feet. That has become more and more part of the equation for the college football coach.
So
But
let me
Go ahead,
just
Andrew.
interject here. Then we're gonna have to, you know, we're trying to do this for all positions. But here's the deal: Coach Voles is very good. He's very accurate at everything he's saying, but the quarterback coach down the road might be different. And for us to really go into full detail, we'd probably need at least another half hour. And the reason is because the next thing is with the highlight film and understanding and why you need to make an appointment with us, honestly, is, you know, what level is my son and what does it take to be Division I, Division II, Division III? And there's a lot to that, you know. So the 6'2" kid is different than the 6'4", different than the 6 foot or the 5'10". Obviously, the shorter you are, then the more they're going to ask of you as a quarterback coach. You're going to have every skill. If you're 6'1" or shorter and you want to play scholarship football, you're going to have to run. And if you can't run, there's not a lot of guys out there that are taking it to scholarship level. They might take some, but not many. And I can tell you that because I watched a lot of film as I coach in college. I watch way more film now and speak to way more college coaches now. Those are the facts. And the quarterback position is very difficult. One, a lot of kids want to play quarterback. Two, the whole portal thing. So I'm sorry I had to butt in there, but I think it's all important. But I think understanding what it takes to play at the different levels and what their expectations are. And I'll get a parent, whoa, they have a 6 foot quarterback on their roster. Well, he might be a walk-on or he might be unbelievable. But typically at the FBS major college level, there are a few. There really are. And there can be. But they need to be extremely good in all areas. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, just wanted to mention.
No, that's okay. And Craig, we talked obviously in the pre-show meeting. I think that the overall agreement was in this highlight tape, you know, this player's got to show how, from a speed perspective, that they're, you know, going to stand above the rest. So, you know, looking at game tape or what have you, obviously, you know, you're familiar with defensive backs, wide receivers. You know, how are these guys going to portray, like, you know, that their speed is that much better than the guys, or the guys not only that they played against, but the guys that they want to compete against the next level?
Both of those positions, I'm glad I got them grouped together because both of them positions are tough for two reasons. One, when you film most football, high school football, you film the box, which has got the O-line, D-line, you get the running backs and the linebackers. So the DBs and the receivers are usually outside the frame a lot of times. So it's harder to get good film on DBs and receivers unless you have a coach that's doing a wide angle or you have someone that's filming for you personally during the game to help with your highlights. So that's one reason it's tough on DBs and receivers. The other things is type offense. You have a running offense or you playing against all the teams in your conference run the ball, it's tough for DBs and receivers to really get to see those skills. That's why we recommend, Coach Cohen recommended in the last time, episode 7, about filming your 7-on-7s, because even running teams go to these 7-on-7 tournaments, and now you get an opportunity to get on film what you can do ability-wise as a receiver, as a defensive back. You know, as a defensive coach or a defensive back, you know, I wanted to see something in there, seeing that you do have that burst, that explosiveness. You can flip your hips, you can change direction, you can drive on the ball. I want to see them using their hands to get off blocks, and nothing excites me more than the defensive back that'll come up and tackle. That for some reason I get so excited about that because I know how big stopping the run is. You know, as far as receivers, and I'll kind of go through these kind of quick. One of the biggest things I got from most receiving coaches is I'd bring in a 6'4" wide receiver, and he's fast and he's flying. He's catching the go route on everybody that they play. He might have 100 touchdowns. But that's the only route they see. They want to see you run other routes. They want to see you run a dig. They want to see you run a slant. They want to see you stem and make the DBs do what you want them to do. So you got to have different routes in there. You can't just be a straight line outrun everybody and expect to get a lot of looks from college coaches. You need to put more on the film. You need to show catching the ball with your hands and what you do after the catch. And another thing receivers got to keep in mind is blocking is important. Because running is still a big part of our game. You know, Vince Lombardi said blocking and tackling was what football was all about, right? And it still is. Running is still a part of this game, and so you got to be able to block. The other position I had, I'll just touch on real quick, was kickers, and again, that's another position you're not going to get great film on. A lot of games, the kickers use those little tees or whatever they call them nowadays, those blocks to kick off of. College coaches don't want to see that, you know. So a lot of times kickers will use highlight films that they make, you know, at home on their own, kicking off the ground. That's the key for kickers, and when they go to camps, getting those highlight films as well. Being able to kick 5 kicks in a row, moving the ball, you know, without stopping the film. That's always important. You know, we look at things like, is the wind blowing behind your back real hard? You know, you're kicking 60 yards, but you see the trees bending over. You know, that again, we catch on to that stuff as coaches. So I don't think we're trying to fool anybody. But for kickers, receivers, and DBs, it's harder than the other positions just to get regular, you know, film. You got to go out your way and even have someone filming for you sometimes. But I'll let whoever's next go. I kind of went through that quick because I know we're running a little bit behind. But
No, I don't want you to rush that much. I'm just
Yeah, no, I don't either. And let me just interject one thing. And covering the Big 33 here in Pennsylvania for as many years as I have, all I can tell you is that, you know, so many times, at least with kickers and long snappers and special teams guys, quite honestly, yeah, you're going to put that highlight out there, but so much of it is related to tryouts. These guys are just going mano-a-mano, you know, kicking for accuracy, kicking for distance, snapping for accuracy and what have you. I can attest to the fact that there are guys that got scholarships just from being the long snapper on the Big 33 team. Okay, because so many of these coaches, I mean, how much time are you going to spend like scouting a long snapper? Well, this guy just went through the entire state of Pennsylvania. He's the guy. All right, he's my guy. And so, you know, don't in special teams, don't disregard the fact of all those personal aspects there too. But Andrew, obviously, you're a defensive guy, defensive line, linebackers. What are those two positions? What do they really have to, in their highlight film, what do they need to put in there so that it jumps out to that college coach?
Sure. So I'm going to start with the defensive line. And also I typed up a few things that you can take a look at in the chat. Just some basic things for a quarterback, basic things for receivers, DBs, just some things that came to my mind. And guys like, you know, Craig or Ed, you know, feel free to type anything in there too. It can help. But so I'm going to start with this. To be a defensive lineman, you know, it's a position where you have to have so many strong qualities. So I'm going to tell a quick story. When I was a Division III head coach, okay, after doing it for a little bit, it was my second year, and I said, we need to put down the musts for a kid to have to play this position or that position. So I'm going to bring up defensive line. So at the Division III level, if a kid's got all the skills, you're not getting him. He's going to go play at a higher level. So this is really truthful. And I think people do this to some degree, but not as specific. So my deal, for instance, I had to see explosiveness and takeoff. To be a really good D lineman, you have to show snaps, though, of them where they get off the football so quick, so fast twitched, and they're the first ones off the ball on the film. I didn't care what your 40 time as much as how quick were you. I didn't care on the Division III level. I didn't care if he was 6'1", 6'2". I'll still take a guy FCS football that's 6 foot, 6'1", if he can be 280 or more. You know, where he if he can get off the ball, meaning takeoff, if he's physical, plays hard, and can change direction. So when you're making a D-line tape, have explosiveness takeoff plays, have physical plays, have athletic plays, have plays you can show speed. So you're showing those ranges. The guys that play Division One have all those things, and they're big, and they run fast times. The guys that play FCS are probably going to be a little bit shorter, a step slower, realistically. And then it just keeps going down like that. But I used to say, and I think it makes sense to me, at Division III, right? What are you okay with the kid not having? Be realistic, and then even at the FCS level, if you get a kid who goes to a Ivy League or a Patriot League, it's really good football, but if they had everything, they're probably not getting them, right? So what are you okay with them not having? So I think those are pretty basic things, but there's an art to the D-line. There's an art to recruiting it. I think that, again, if you show me a film, I'm going to be brutally honest, but I can really help a family make the film better, and I can make sure that they're focusing on the right things. Okay? So that's it with the D-line. And the linebackers, you can say, are maybe not that much different. I mean, today it's really they're going to recruit 2 inside the box linebackers, and one might be a little more athletic than the other. And then the guys that are playing like what they call a Sam or a Rover, they're not really linebackers anymore because there's so much spread. They got to be able to play man. They got to be able to blitz off the edge. I'm not going to include them in the linebacker conversation. 99% of the time, they are high school safeties or high school receivers or running backs. And that's a whole nother topic. But if you're going to play, DB in college, a lot of times those guys are getting recruited because of their exceptional play on offense, because there's not enough that you can show off of the high school film of them playing corner. It's a little off the subject, but I don't know if it is off the subject. But at linebacker, for instance, most schools at the major college level are going to start inside the box. Guys are, if you're a top 30 team in the country, 6'1" or higher. Doesn't mean there's not 6-foot kids, but there's very few. And then as you go down, I think you can go down to the Division III level where, 5'9" guy is going to be short, but if he has all the tools, they're going to, they'll definitely take him. But from there, they're looking for ability to transfer weight, explosiveness, great change of direction. I've been around kids that might not run a great 40, but inside that box, they might take a false step, but then they're going the other way quickly and explosively. So that's a lot of like the 5-10-5 or the L drill. They got to be able to change directions quickly and come back to a balanced football position. So again, they got to be fast, explosive, great change of direction, and they got to have a high motor. I'm not taking a kid that doesn't have a high motor. I'll make a large decision off of the highlight film if I was still coaching, but then I'd say, give me your best game or two. I want to make sure, are they still making regular plays, and are they playing every down hard? And if they're not willing to look at that, then I think you might want to be concerned about their success or not having success. So like I said earlier, we can go on and on about all these positions for a long time, but I think we've covered some really, really important information, and understand that. So like I've said it before on the show, my brother's at Wake Forest, we're similar to the kind of kids we want on defense. Length is important, athleticism, heart, toughness, all that stuff, and then you get another guy at a similar level, and he might be saying, yeah, he's athletic, but I don't know how tough he is. You know what I mean? Like, so everyone is a little different. And then there's scheme. If you're running a 3-4 scheme and you're an inside linebacker, you're going to get guards that frequently get to the next level and block you. You're going to have to be bigger and more physical to play in a 3-4 defense compared to the 4-3. So yeah. Hopefully that's helpful information. What's that?
All good stuff. And obviously, the reason we've had 17 episodes here is the fact that it all comes together. I mean, you've got to have a great social media presence. You got so that these coaches have access to a great highlight film, and that you're portraying yourself, in a positive light. So it isn't just, one thing or the other. It's, a complete and total package that's required if you really want to play at the next level. And I keep, bringing us back to obviously your program here, Andrew and Craig, but quite honestly, it all fits together. And without one piece of the puzzle, you just don't have everything complete. And the only way you're going to get to the next level is having a complete package, right, Craig?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
So,
Coach, let me ask a quick question for Coach Voles. So Coach Voles fortunate that, and actually you too, Coach Cox, but you've come, you've been guys that have coached college extensively and high school. So I guess my question to either of you, Ed and I have talked about this a little bit, but what have you now knowing what you did as a high school coach, and then as a college coach, and now back to high school, but also being a major part of a group at Get Recruited that helps families in the recruiting process. So what have you seen? What do you see as, why is it important that Get Recruited gets involved or not involved? Or what do we do say that Coach Voles did a great job helping his kids, but what do you see now that has changed some of your thoughts, or you realize now that a lot even more can be done? Is that understandable what I'm asking, or am I confusing?
No, and Coach Cox, if you'll allow me to jump in, because I'm pretty passionate about this element of what Get Recruited is done. Really what gets lost is when you're a high school head coach, you're only exposed to the people in your own bubble. And you're not exposed to everything that's out there. So this kind of leads to, I was going to address the O-line situation, and you really have a very, very narrow perspective. So for example, when I was coaching at Sarasota High School, I had a quarterback that was 6'4" and I thought could throw the football pretty well. And I thought he was a Division I player just simply because he could move and he could throw. And then you go watch the 6'1" kid from Texas who absolutely rips it. And you're not even talking about the same quality of player. So that, to me, where, for the high school coach, he's really got a dual role. Part of it is his, he wants to lead the people that he cares about in a certain direction. But at the same time, he's got to placate to them a little bit, right? Otherwise, they're not going to believe in him, and they don't feel they believe in what he's saying. So I think where Get Recruited has stepped in, and the thing I love about what Andrew's about and what we've done is it is a fair, honest evaluation from the eyes of a college coach. And there are a lot of variables that I think, a typical high school coach would not be aware of, or things that you really don't have a great perspective of what's really out there. And how big is the pool of players that colleges have to choose from? So I definitely think that, getting the third party not only is the right thing to do for your kids, but if I'm a high school coach, I'm reaching out to Andrew Cohen and Get Recruited and Coach Cox for an honest evaluation for my kids, because it allows me to take a step back and just do what's right for the kid. And it's not a conflict of interest. So I think it's hugely important. And honestly, maybe the biggest underappreciated portion of the Get Recruited program is the ability to get those unbiased evaluations. And honestly, most people don't want to know the truth. They'd rather put their head in the sand and believe in their own thought processes rather than believe in the people that are, as close to experts as you could be. It's really an interesting dynamic.
I think too that you touched on it, of why the third party is important, because whether it's the coach or whether it's the trainer, they have a vested interest, And I think getting that third party opinion only helps the coach prepare other players better that are in the pipeline. Wouldn't you say, Andrew?
I think so. I think the problem, the concern, I don't want to say a problem for a high school coach or a family is are the people that are doing this, are they qualified? Which obviously we are, but a lot of people are not. And then are they going to be honest? And we are definitely going to be flat out honest. And we are going to, sometimes people don't want to hear that, like Coach Bowles said, but we're going to be honest. We're very good at what we do. But it's not like this is where you are and it's a done deal. This is where you are. And if you want to improve, you have to do A, B, C, or D. But we're not, putting a dream world out there. We are going to be upfront and we are going to communicate what's realistic. Like if you're an offensive lineman and you're 5'11", you can play at some places, but unfortunately that is going to limit your opportunities at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
Let me add to that, Badge, real quick. And the biggest thing with Coach Andrew too, and it's the reason why he's the only recruiting service that I work with. I researched a lot of recruiting services when I started my business because I felt it would be a good idea to get a relationship with recruiting services. He's the only one I work with because he does what he says he's going to do. He calls coaches directly. He don't just blast coaches with emails that's going to get deleted. Every college coach that I know, including myself, first thing you do when you get in the office, you delete 100 emails that these recruiting services just blasted you with students who can't get into your school or can't play at your level. So it's just, unfortunately, there's a lot of services out there that's wasting students' time. And, that upsets me because we're all about helping people. Everybody in this panel right here, we're in this fight for the same reason. We want to help as many students as we can be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we don't want to leave, offensive linemen without, obviously, Ed, you touched on the fact that, about offensive linemen. I mean, just give us, the top two things that an offensive lineman really needs to do in their highlight tape to be impactful when a college coach turns on that video. You're on mute.
Say that the first thing that I'm looking for is dominating the line of scrimmage. And a lot of guys will have highlight videos where they're sort of wrestling a guy at the line of scrimmage and then they throw him down on the ground. And, in their minds, it's a pancake. And in the real world, that ain't a pancake. That's a wrestling move. And most of the time it's because you aren't very good at moving your feet. So I think one of the things that we always look at with offensive linemen, once you get past the height weight metrics, because maybe of all positions in football, it is the greatest eliminator and the fastest way to get knocked off somebody's list. So I will say this, that the height weight metrics for the offensive lineman is probably way more important than any other position on the football field. Just simply because you're dealing with 5 guys per team. Every team's got them. So you've got to find ways to eliminate the guys that, you just can't recruit. But once you get past that and you can visually see the size and the girth that they claim they are, I'm looking for domination at the line of scrimmage. Can you, lock on a guy and drive him 5 yards down the field and finish him? The other real challenge for O-line is the competition. You could have a Division I offensive lineman going against a kid that's 5'10" and 205 pounds. How do you evaluate his effectiveness at the next level? But the bottom line is, if he can't dominate, and I mean absolutely obliterate that dude, from the line of scrimmage, that's a red flag for me. So I'm always looking for how dominant are they at the line of scrimmage. The other thing then that's much more prevalent at the college game than the high school game is the athleticism. So I want to see your skill, I want to see your movement skills, even if you don't block anybody. Like I want to see a guy pull, and even if on a screen, even if he doesn't block a soul, I want to watch his skills. Can I see those skills and project them at the college level? And once again, he could pull and run it on a screen. I'm just looking for athleticism. How athletic is he? So if he's 6'4", okay. Is he a stiff, 6'4", or is he athletic 6'4"? Because it makes all the difference in the world. And high school offensive linemen are very, very hard to evaluate just because of there's just so many variables that you have to assess. But I would say the two things, how do you handle the line of scrimmage? Do you dominate the line of scrimmage first and foremost, and then your movement skills? Are you an athlete? Can you bend? Can you change direction? Can you sink your hips? Or are you just a big kid? And I think those are the two things that always stand out for me as things that I look for when evaluating an offensive lineman.
Can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
Just my
Absolutely.
experience. I've been a defensive guy most of my life, but we're in the meeting rooms with the offensive line coach when he's looking at film and what he wants to see. I know I brought in some really good looking prospects, and they're blowing people off the line, but their team only runs the ball. It's like, well, I need to see him pass that. So that's why, again, it's important to get these other skills some way, somehow, even if it's a couple reps, outside of a game
basketball
that you put on your back. Yeah. Something, and that's why it's also important for guys like that, offensive linemen, to go to camps where colleges can actually see them do those types of skills. But they might have been a great pass setter, but if you don't, like you said early on, Coach Foles, if you don't see it on film, we have no idea that you can do it.
Look, I obviously, I'm just I don't consider myself an expert here, but all I know is that the guys that I've seen be successful in getting college scholarships for offensive linemen have been guys that went out there and were good basketball players. Because it translates so much better. I mean, in obviously speed and quickness and the way that they move, the athleticism, everything you talked about, Ed. Go out there and play basketball. I mean, and the other thing too, and this is just me now, okay? I've seen all these highlight tapes of these guys that are playing Division One, football. Hey, you know what? If I was putting a video together, my recommendation: go see what one of these offensive linemen that just got a Division One scholarship. Take a look at their highlight tape. Okay, if your highlight tape isn't what that highlight tape is of that guy, well, I mean, that's what you should be striving for, right, Ed?
Yeah, no doubt. One of the things I think that we offer our clients is we researched what does the NFL Combine skills look like, and we'll send that blueprint out and just say, hey, listen, what you're in an offense that doesn't showcase these skills. Go take a couple of weeks, practice these things, and then film them. We keep going back, and I want to stress that when you're a college prospect, you're trying to put an athletic resume on tape. You're not trying, it's not a highlight. It's trying to say to a coach, hey, coach, this is my skill set, and this is what I can bring to your program. And then they'll develop it within there. But, athleticism is just critical to having more opportunities, whether you're the 5'10" quarterback or the 6'2" guard. The difference between an opportunity and not is really how athletic are you.
I feel very fortunate the fact that, look, I live in Reading, Pennsylvania. I've had opportunity to cover and watch some really tremendous Division One talent throughout my, time here. And all I can say, as far as, the advice that I would give guys, as I just said, go out there and watch these guys that have the Division I scholarships already and look at their highlight tape. See what's jumping off the screen with them and find that same level of wow factor in your highlight and put it in there. Otherwise, then don't think you're a Division I, guy. I mean, and I think that the being able to they say what as far as as far as flattery goes, being able to mimic all of that. I think that you've just got to mimic what's being successful out there and what's getting coaches' eyes. And obviously those Division I guys and what they're putting out there on film, that's what you've got to do there if you want to get a college scholarship, I think. But that's just me. So,
And I would agree. I would agree totally.
So, all right. Well, gosh, we kind of went over tonight. Andrew actually had to drop off because he had a meeting. But I tell you what, obviously we had episode 7 on film, episode 17. I based on how emotional this whole thing about highlights are. I don't think we're gonna have to wait 10 more weeks, Craig, before we have another highlight segment. What do you think?
You're probably absolutely right. It seems like all the subjects that we've covered, and you can go catch every one of our episodes at my website in the video page, one-on-one-life-skills.com on the videos page. You can catch every one of our episodes. Everything we've talked about, we like scratch the surface every time and say we can do 5 more shows on this one subject. I mean, there's just so much to talk about and to help teach parents and students about this recruiting process. And that's what we're here to do. So absolutely take advantage of all these highlight video. I mean, all these podcasts and about everything you can think about, from transfer portal to NIL to highlight videos to social media. We've covered just about everything.
Well, the one thing that we really haven't covered, and this is kind of like the end of our next quarter here, is next week, August 6th, a coaches roundtable, college coaches roundtable on recruiting. We're going to have a Division I coach, a Division II coach, and a Division III coach talk with our panel here about college football recruiting. I'm telling you what, for any guy who wants to play college football, this is a must watch to hear directly from these coaches what they're looking at, what they need, and how they're going to go about finding the players that are going to play at their school. So our college coaches roundtable, I'm really excited about that one. I mean, that just doesn't happen, man. I mean, to get college coaches on here telling you exactly what they want to see so that they can bring you on. I mean, that's what you want, right, Ed? You're on mute.
That's an exciting opportunity, because really it's so different at each level, and to get the perspective of a coach at the various levels, I think Andrew talks about it all the time with clients and people of how important having a game plan is, and you may not always love the answers that you get, but every answer you get is one step closer to the ultimate goal of trying to get yourself placed in the proper place. So I'm definitely looking forward to tuning in for that episode next week.
Yeah, Craig, what do you think next week? I'm already excited about next week as well, having college coaches roundtable on recruiting.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Well, listen, thanks everybody for joining us here this week on the Get Signed and Succeed podcast. I tell you what, this is episode 17. It just keeps getting better for me. I mean, and Ed, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate everybody joining us. And don't forget, August 6th, 7:30, our coaches roundtable on college recruiting. We'll have a Division I, Division II, Division III coach talking about what they're looking at when they're trying to find talent to play at their school. So For Ed, for Craig, for Andrew, who had to depart to a meeting, I'm Bruce Badgley. See you next Sunday night